So what is the best affordable graphics card right now with the launch of nvidia's GTX 1660 Ti and the RTX 2060? I figured it would be interesting to find out how these new cards performs in Fortnite Battle Royale compared to the older GTX 1060, who is getting out of stock as I'm recording this. So in this video we're gonna be testing these three cards on two different PCs. First one is a budget friendly one with a Ryzen 5 2400G, a 4-core processor with 8 gigs of RAM, and the other PC, which is more like a semi mid-range PC I guess, features a Ryzen 1700, an 8-core processor with 16 gigs of RAM, and yeah, both processors are clocked at the same frequency, 3.6 GHz, should be said. So essentially a budget system versus a mid-range PC I guess. Now I wanna know guys, what do you think about Season 8 in Fortnite so far? As always, the latest nvidia driver has been used here, which is the 419.17. as of posting this video. I've tested the game in two different graphics settings. First up is the competitive setting, which is the graphics settings that pro players tend to play at. I've also tested the game in the highest graphics settings in 1080p. The highest preset is also known as the epic preset, and so essentially all three cards have been tested on these two PCs in two different presets. Also guys, let me know if you would like to see tests in 1440p and 4K in the future as well. Now more specific details of each system, have a look in the description where everything is listed. So with competitive settings applied on the Ryzen 2400G with 8 gigs of RAM, we can see that with an average frame rate of 150 FPS on the GTX 1060, again on the budget 4-core CPU and 8 gig RAM PC, we're able to keep a very stable frame rate, well over 100 frames per second. Competitive settings does make the game look a bit flatter, however, disabling anti-aliasing does introduce more sharp edges and jagged lines in the game, but considering the extra frame rate, it might be worth opting for if you have a high refresh rate monitor where you're trying to lock the frame rate at, let's say, 120 FPS or 144. For example, if we compare the budget 4-core CPU versus the mid-range 8-core CPU system, we can see that we're gaining an average frame rate of 10 to 20 FPS in best case scenarios, which is something you might not be able to spot without the frame counter at this high frame rate. But also keep in mind that a higher average frames per second often means a higher low FPS count as well, and so at times where you can notice that the 1060 struggles here, the 1660 Ti typically offers a better and smoother experience in general. Now if we bump up the quality to the highest, the epic graphics preset, gaming on the GTX 1060 on this budget friendly 2400 is still a pleasant experience. Maxing out this game without facing any kind of bottlenecking shouldn't be a problem. Again, even on a very cheap CPU like the 2400G and only 8 gigs of RAM, the 1660 Ti with an average frame rate of 100 FPS offers a very pleasant experience, but it's not quite enough for a fast refresh rate monitor, and not even the RTX 2060 is able to reach above the 120 FPS mark. That said, neither the GTX 1660 Ti or the RTX 2060 were never really working at 100% load here, and even though we should technically see higher frame rate number here, the CPU is unfortunately not fast enough for these two graphics cards. But again, the GTX 1060 on the other hand has no problem reaching 100% GPU load. So that tells us that the Ryzen 2400 is powerful enough to not become a bottleneck for the 1060, but it is not strong enough to keep up with the 1660 or the RTX 2060. Jumping over to the 8-core CPU shows us the same kind of thing again. While the GTX 1060 is perfect for both of these systems, the RTX 2060 only showed about 90% GPU GPU usage on the 8-core CPU and around 75% GPU usage on the 4-core system. Same goes for the 1660 Ti, but the numbers were closer to 100% GPU load this time. And so this tells us, guys, that if you're interested of reaching above the 120 FPS mark in Fortnite, a GTX 1060 should be enough, even if you're sitting on a budget system. And although you should be able to reach an average frame rate of 120 FPS, you might have to get rid of anti-aliasing and step back a bit on the shadow quality to get there. If you on the other hand have a faster CPU, reaching above 150 FPS average should be possible on the RTX 2060, and around 120 FPS shouldn't be a problem to reach with a GTX 1660 Ti at the highest epic preset. Unfortunately, both the Ryzen 2400 and the Ryzen 1700 is unable to keep up with the 1660 and the RTX 2060, and this is typically what happens when you pair up a cheap CPU with a much faster graphics card. And although the 1700 never was considered a budget CPU really, it was AMD's first generation Ryzen processor based on the Zen architecture, and it should be said that there has been improvements on the Ryzen family since the first generation. Now, with this all being said, can overclocking your graphics card result in a higher frame rate? And can you overclock your CPU? Yes, definitely. Now, although a fast CPU is always preferable in many games, if you want to achieve the highest possible frame rate, Fortnite does benefit from a fast graphics card. And while I haven't had a chance to run any overclocking tests in this game, overclocking your graphics card typically gives you 5 to 10 more FPS. Now, I'll link up a video down below, guys, where I show you in step by step how you can unlock more frames for free by overclocking your graphics card. Now, as for reference, since I don't have any AMD cards to test on right now, the AMD Radeon RX 580 and even the RX 570 are great budget graphics cards from the Red team. And as for nvidia, if you can pick up a 1060 cheap, it could be a great deal. They are, however, slowly getting out of stock right now and are getting replaced by the 1660 Ti. And speaking of which, the 1660 offers great performance up from the 1060, and if you can find one under $280, it's a great deal. I want to know in the comments, guys, what graphics card are you gaming on right now? That concludes this video. I'm gonna be back with a brand new video in just a day or two. Until then, have an awesome day, right? Bye.